that, that maybe some of these things have proof and everything on them, I figured it might be a good chance to just let them open up a little bit.
So, Scott, I'm not sure how you guys do it. Normally, at the Prime Barrel, we actually have sort of like a guideline, can call it a system, guideline, whatever, on how we taste things. So normally we go, obviously, sample by sample, and we score everything on a scale 0 to 10 on 3 different categories: nose, palate, and finish.
All right.
And then we do individual scores and combined scores, and just use them to foster the conversation. That they're not end all be all, obviously, but positions people around the same set of metrics, if you will.
All right. And you said you use a 1 to 10 scale?
0 to 10. Yeah. 0. So 5 is an average. Anything.
Yes. Make sure we don't get any zeros in there.
Yeah. Hopefully we don't need 0 tonight.
I didn't even notice till just now the depth of your pours there, Scott. I'm impressed.
Oh yeah,
poured the whole thing in it.
Yeah. No, I don't have. No, I don't.
Yeah. So anyway, 5 is an average. Anything below 5, don't really care for. Anything above 5, you like, to different levels, and we go from there. We honestly, like, when we do this, we barely ever score anything above 8. Like, it really has to be outstanding. Normally, if it's 7, it becomes a pick.
Yeah,
it becomes a selection. Anyway, so I see Jason on. What's up, Jason?
What's up, guys?
Colin, maybe we kick it off with you, just giving us like a small overview of the business. I mean, I know the story, but people might want to know as well. And then how your single barrel program has evolved, right? This is an addition to it, essentially. So go ahead.
This is kind of a new thing in terms of, the evolution of Kings County single barrels, which I can narrate. But first, I'll just give the very, very basics, which is just that Kings County Distillery is a Brooklyn-based craft distillery. We're here in the Brooklyn Navy Yard and have been going since 2010, which makes us sort of a middle-aged craft distiller, and I got interested in distilling because I grew up in Kentucky. So as soon as I moved to New York, everybody was asking me about bourbon. And I really grew up in the moonshine part of Kentucky. So Eastern Kentucky, coal mining Kentucky. But once I moved to New York, I realized, it's all the same to a New Yorker. It's all fried chicken and horse racing and bourbon. So this was my cultural inheritance. And I was, I was like, okay, I'm going to embrace it. So I got a still off the internet and started distilling in my apartment. Not really with the intention of opening a craft distillery, but just kind of like, can this be done? Can you be a home brewer of whiskey? And sure, it is illegal to do that, but I think with the advent of the age of the internet and just the way that sort of the food world was changing, people were really interested in where things come from. And at the same time, I should say, there was something, as a Kentuckian, looking at the world of commercial bourbon, it was very disillusioning because there were all of these, giant sort of distilleries posing as very small, family-run distillers, and very few of them were that. And in fact, they were making products that were really designed to be interchangeable behind the scenes, to have barrels that were basically the same recipe, basically the same distillation technique. So it was the only thing that was ever differentiating itself was time in the barrel and proof of bottling, and maybe one of 3 different recipes. And I felt like there was what people wanted bourbon to be, and there's what it had become through years and years of corporatization, industrialization. And so because I first got interested in moonshine, even before getting into bourbon and aged whiskeys, I thought, this is a really cool thing to try to go back to what really Kentucky left all the way back at the time of Prohibition, and really try to make pot still bourbon, make open fermented bourbon, make bourbon that's aged in a variety of different formats like it used to be, and really just kind of take really a small business approach to making bourbon and rye whiskey and single malt whiskey. So if there's anything that Kings County stands for, it's essentially, we are making American whiskey the way that it was made more than 100 years ago in the 1800s, when American distillers still used pot stills. They still used, organic grains, heirloom grains, not factory farmed grains. And, put a different way, we are making whiskey in a lot of ways like single malt Scotch. We're using pot stills. We use a high malt recipe, which is more of a historical style of American whiskey. Again, we're using a variety of different barrel formats, and really put a lot of emphasis on the assembly of the whiskeys, blending of the whiskeys in the process of putting them together, because we really don't make that much. Ultimately, we are still, we're not the smallest small distillery, but we're kind of a medium on this, I don't know how to maybe small, medium size distillery. But our output is about 4 barrels a day. So, you put that in comparison with Maker's Mark is 400 barrels a day. This is where we are. And we're not trying to be Maker's Mark. We're trying to deliberately do something very distinct from Kentucky bourbon, but also doing something that Kentucky bourbon used to be. And to some extent, even with all these new distilleries that have opened in Kentucky, only a handful are approaching bourbon this way, which is small scale, using older techniques, older traditions, and much more emphasis of the distiller per barrel, per batch, per bottle, however you want to describe it. So that's essentially the overview. We're in New York, so we use New York grains. So all of these are bourbon. They're 80% corn, 20% malted barley, is our standard mash bill. It's possible that one of these might have deviated from that, but in general, that's the standard mash bill of Kings County that we've used for certainly as long as these whiskeys have been around. I'm not even going to say age statements just yet. I'll let you guys.
Don't say anything about the whiskey, because I think
Yeah.
all of us would want to do it blind anyway and do
Sure,
the actual
sure.
whiskey justice. Well,
Yeah.
we want to be surprised at the end of it. 2 things. Did I hear you mention heirloom rye? Are you guys using heirloom rye? I'm sorry, heirloom grains?
Well, yes. We're using organic grains, which to some extent, by definition, are don't have any. They're not genetically modified. They might be hybrid, meaning, yeah. So this bourbon is not made with, I guess, like Bloody Butcher, or like what people would call heirloom varieties. These are, right. But they're organic, traditional grains that have been grown in New York for, that's a good question. I don't know when.
I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
Yeah.
I guess the point was more so that you actually use grains that is grown in New York. You're not importing grain from outside. It's not factory made. That's the point I was trying to make. Yeah.
Or maybe organic is a better word than heirloom, because heirloom sort of suggests specific varietals that are not being grown for that reason. So, but one thing I do want to say about the single barrel program, which is just that for a long time, and you can kind of see behind me, there's some small format barrels, and so we're really going through this transition of it was really 4 years ago. And I guess 4 years ago, really, we're right in it, was when we stopped making hand sanitizer and started making bourbon again after COVID. So the real waterfall of whiskey that's 4 years old from 53-gallon barrels is just beginning now, and we're just phasing out barrels. The youngest of our small format barrels is now 4 years old.
Yeah.
So any 15-gallon barrel that we have is going to be, and realistically, I think it's more like 5 years, because there was a whole hand sanitizer phase, and even at the end of 2019, we were beginning to commit pretty exclusively to large format barrels. So for a long time, if you got a barrel from Kings County, it was a small format barrel, it was a 15-gallon barrel, 30-gallon barrel. And we kind of gotten known for those barrels because we would let them age a lot longer than our peer set. And so the idea was, you know, a long time people would say small barrels make whiskey age faster. And we were sort of like, yes, certain aspects of that happen faster. But what happens when you have a 15-gallon barrel that goes 7 years, or 6-7 years? It's really unusual. It's not. It's comparable in ways to something you might get out of Kentucky plus 12 years, but in other ways it's not. So, but it was really just kind of experimental, and it was, people really gravitated to those barrels. And so now that we're into more full-size barrels, the question is, how do we create something interesting? And so what I will say about these barrels is there's an aspect of Elevage, which is a sort of cognac term, but they're not single barrels in the sense that we filled them, however many years ago and never touched them. These are actually barrels that are low fill barrels that have been topped off with an older age stated whiskey from a small barrel. So they're, Elevage barrels, topped off barrels. They're usually at least 2 barrels involved in the creation of this single barrel, but they're all unique.
Sort of like Solaris system, right? That's what you're describing.
Yeah. It's more, again, it's interesting, as a small distiller, you end up adopting practices less like what they're doing in Kentucky and more like what happens in a cognac or a smaller sort of European setting. So a lot of these barrels wouldn't be sellable as single barrels because they don't have enough volume, or just it's maybe they're not that interesting. But when you add the sort of older small format whiskey, it gives that sort of classic Kings County profile that I think people are looking for.
I guess one thing I'll say about this, and we'll get to the tasting in a second. I know I'm detracting everyone, but we knew each other since probably day one. I remember your moonshine, like selling your moonshine, literally moonshine. And every year we've done a few battles with you, more than I can count, I think, at this point. And every year they were different, right? To your point, aging in those smaller barrels each year had a pretty drastic effect on the taste. And with each year, even the color of the whiskey was getting darker and darker and darker. And as Tim likes to put it, it's a color of a used motor oil. These are markedly not that. These are much lighter than your usual whiskey. So I guess my question would be, and we'll get to taste it in a second, how the taste profile in that bigger barrel compares to your smaller barrels that people are used to.
I can tell you what I think, how I would answer that question, but I think it's better if you taste them first.
Sure.
Come up with your own, opinions.
Fair enough.
But I want to think if there's anything else that I need to say about these whiskeys, other than one thing I would pay attention to that is perhaps distinct from a Kentucky bourbon is the method of distillation is a pot still. That is a word that is thrown around a lot. Obviously, Willet has their pot still, which is first distilled in column still. Pot still is in the way that we do it. It's more like the single malt distilleries of Scotland. We got our stills built by Forsyth in Scotland. Woodford Reserve is also Forsyth pot stills. It has a viscosity to the whiskeys that is really unique to, that is a signature of Kings County. And that viscosity is a little bit thicker, a little bit more buttery. Just the texture of the whiskey is different from a Kentucky bourbon. And so That will be the through line to any Kings County product you've ever had. And will certainly be true of these whiskeys, but these are also obviously at barrel strength, so they'll be bold.
I would suggest we go one by one, do it ourselves, score each of these 5 samples ourselves, and then have a discussion. And as we're doing it, I think it also would be probably beneficial for us to introduce ourselves, right? Because we're doing it as a collaboration between 2 pretty big clubs. I know who the people are, but people that are watching probably don't. So I guess I can start. My name is Michael Nagdi. I'm a co-founder of the Prime Barrel. We are a retailer, but we're also a national whiskey club with 1,600 people in it, have a pretty lively community, and do these kind of things very often. And we launch barrels every couple of weeks. And we also work with clubs such as Jason's and Scott's Club on these collaborative projects. Scott, do you want to go next?
Yeah. So, my name is Scott. So I've run for a few years now the My Bourbon Journey whiskey review channel. Jason and I teamed up 2021 to combine our channels and create the Mash and Journey Whiskey Club. And we've done, I think to date, I know he probably has the spreadsheet of integrity, but maybe upwards of 150 or so picks, give or take, something like that.
128.
128. All right. So we decided in 2021 that we wanted
Actually,
to
2019, dude.
Oh, was it 2019? Oh,
Time
shoot.
flies when you're having fun.
Oh, all right.
2019, 2020. Oh no,
maybe it was 2020.
No, we talked about it in 2020. We did our first pick release in 21. So yeah,
2021. So I've run this, and we just kind of we developed a pretty good relationship and friendship, and we decided to start the club, and we're probably, I don't know, I'm guessing in that 1,100-ish members or so right now, I think, give or take again. And here we are. We're excited to do Kings County. So thanks
Awesome.
for the opportunity.
Yeah, of course. Jason, want to go next?
Sure. My name is Jason Calori. I run the Mash and Drum whiskey review channel. About 90,000 subscribers. Trying to hit that 100,000 mark by the end of this year.
Get a plaque.
Yeah, I got to get the silver button, I guess. I mean, nothing much to add from Scott's point of view. Scott was the first person to kind of welcome me into the whole whiskey tube thing. He had a channel before I did, and was very kind to kind of help me through doing live streams and stuff like that. And I always said, if I ever get an opportunity to do a barrel pick, let's do it together. So that kind of sparked the initial collaboration between the two of us. And besides all the viewers that I thankfully have, and we've decided to build this whole group and this whole network together. And people seem to love our barrels that we choose. And on top of that, we get to meet great people like you and collaborate on. I'm from New York, so I have a very let's go Kings County, rah rah, let's go here. I'm very excited. I'm very excited for this barrel, and this is a brand that we've gotten a lot of traction for, a lot of requests from our group for the last couple of years. So the fact that we have an opportunity to bring them some Kings County, I'm very excited for. So thanks again.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
All right, Tim.
Sure. No, I'm Tim McKenzie. I've been buying Prime Barrel picks since, I don't know, the first one. We had our very first pick. Actually, I think it might be on the shelf over my shoulder. But I write an article for World and Scotch Whiskey for thewhiskeynetwork.net that at least 2 people have read at some point. So I know that there's at least 2 people. Probably not quite 100,000 yet, but love doing barrel picks and love Kings County.
Cool.
Awesome. And Danny.
Hey, how you guys doing? I'm, I guess, relatively new to the Prime Barrel. Joined in December, I think. Was into Scotch for a long time. Recently, in the past 2 years, got into bourbon. So I'm excited to do a first barrel pick with them.
Awesome. Thanks. Great having you. All right, cool. I've been nosing these things as you guys were talking. And I don't know, again, how you guys do it, but we normally come back to the first one because the first one always becomes like a reference point, right? You compare
Yeah.
everything to the
Yeah.
first one.
Yeah, that's usually what we do. We try to go through them all, nose them, taste them, if we can and time permits, kind of go back through them and see how everything is kind of developing. So
Yeah, and I think it would be interesting as well as you guys are talking about each sample here, kind of give us your preferences, right? Like everybody has different palates. Like, what do you gravitate to? I know personally, some people tend to stay away from too oaky of expression. Some people do like that spice, and so on, and it goes on and on. So for the people from the Prime Barrel Club, we kind of already know each other palates, but since we're doing a collab pick, it would be probably interesting to know what Scott's palate is like and what Jason likes.
yeah. We've kind of done, well, we've done obviously a lot of them. And I guess in terms of our like process, usually we kind of talk our way through all of it, nose, taste, all of that other stuff. So we try to not to leave anything on the table. But in terms of like my palate, like I tend to be a little bit more kind of tried and true. I have like a profile that I tend to kind of look for. And then Jason will have something that's slightly different. But I think, again, the combination of working through all of those has allowed us to really find some really unique barrels and really make some really fun things come that maybe we would have overlooked, had we just done it individually.
Yeah.
Could you describe? Sorry, Jason. Didn't mean to interrupt.
Oh, no, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just gonna ask Scott. So you said there's a certain profile that you kind of gravitate towards. So could you describe it? Like, what is it?
Sure. It's Elijah Craig barrel proof. I work off of that. In my mind, it's plus and minus from there. So if I'm looking for those kind of notes, the richness, and again, how you have it, nose, palate, finish is what Jason and I will do. But in my mind, I know when I'm tasting other things what that profile is, and then that's kind of my benchmark that I kind of work off of.
Okay, fair enough. Jason?
Yeah, I think I look a little bit more outside the box than Scott does, but I think that's what makes us work so well together. I look for stuff that's different, yet still, I think I still look for the same attributes that Scott does, but I look for it in different aspects of the whiskey.
Yep.
The one thing we do agree on that Scott and I always agree on is we always try to find a whiskey with a very long finish. Because we feel like that's what helps really, you could, if a whiskey to me has a short finish, I have to keep, drinking it and I don't really get to enjoy it. Like I rather have some of the long finish. I could sip it, savor it, don't have to pour a lot, and I could have that bottle for a long time and just enjoy it. I always think the nose is a bonus, but sometimes the nose doesn't quite match the palate. It's really palate and finish for me. But like I said, I tend to go, I don't really have a profile. I don't really look for it. I just always love it. I mean, if I had to try to pick a profile, probably just something that's rich, something that's dark, something that has layers to it, and something that could be a little bit off profile from the usual, stuff, whatever that brand is.
Yeah.
So,
right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I didn't want to put you on the spot. Like I wasn't really looking for the exact profile, but what you said was exactly what I was getting at.
Yes. So what are you saying is, Jason, you talk too much?
No. I love that he mentioned that he values finish and palate over nose, because I know people that do the opposite. They value nose and palate over finish, because the argument that I usually hear is that, hey, the nosing of the whiskey kind of sets up the whole tasting experience. If one doesn't match the other, that's off-putting.
Yeah, we ran into a guy like that was at Ben Holiday.
Yeah.
He's like, he goes, I get the most score to the nose. I'm like, well, get the fuck out, because
Yeah.
I'm like, if you're just gonna
All
sit
right.
there and drink it, you're out. I mean, if you're gonna sit there and smell it all day, you're out.
I'm more like you. I'm more of a finish and palate mostly, because that's what you drink, right? And then the finish as well. Yeah. All right, cool.
I was going to say, my nose is absolutely horrible, so I basically strictly go off palate and finish.
Okay.
You stole my wording though. You know what I like. Used motor oil.
Use motor oil.
Yeah.
Use motor oil. All right.
Those 15-gallon Kings County all the way.
Yeah. All right. Thick and rich, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, trying to create like right now what the baseline is, is always a tough one with the first one,
Right. That's right.
Boy, I mean, number one is really nice. A is really nice, actually.
Yeah, I'm using that as my base right now.
Yeah.
Don't fall in love too early, Scott.
Are
I'm
we
telling you,
so, all right, so are we like in terms of are we nose taste, are we nose palate finish one, and then how, like, are we going through the nose on all of them, or
Yeah.
So we've done it both ways, where we did like everybody basically scores the nose and we discuss the nose alone, and then everybody scores it. I don't want to do it that way because it gets a little discombobulated.
Yeah,
Why don't you score every
say.
sample on all three
Perfect.
categories?
Yeah.
Figure out figure out top three, right? We have 5 samples here.
Yeah.
Figure out top 3. Let's eliminate 2, so, and then have a discussion of which one of the last 3 we want.
Okay. All right.
I'll say this though, and again, like we've done plenty of Kings County barrels before, the shorter barrels. This profile is a little different from what I'm used to, in a good way for me. Your 15-gallon barrels were very bold, right? Very in your face. These are more gentle to me.
Yes,
yeah, I would say classic. I mean, I think
in a good way, as I said.
Actually, I mean, I'll answer the question that you posed to me originally. These are a little bit more Kentucky style because they are built off of 53-gallon barrels. Right. So they are more like Kentucky bourbon than typical Kings County. But therefore more, more traditional, more familiar, perhaps.
Yeah, I've had a couple of Kings County, one of those motor oil picks, a couple of them in my travels back to New York. And yeah, I don't know if I would say this is less bold. I mean, I think they're bold, but it's definitely a different profile. I definitely see what you're saying on how it goes a little bit more of a Kentucky style.
Yep.
Rather than that heavy, malty, coffee, chocolate type of profile that you're kind of used to.
Are we not supposed to divulge scores or anything like that? Is that the idea?
You can divulge a score. So the power of suggestion is a very real one, I have to say.
Yeah.
So do you have the scores for all 5 already?
No. I don't. I'm used to like talking my way through this. That's
talk. It's fine. Okay. Talk. Do what you're used to.
And he says I talk too much.
Yeah.
I'll just say this. I have 2 clear favorites. I could eliminate 2 of these right now.
Okay.
All right. You've tasted them all.
Yep. Oh, I'm gonna go back through them after some water just to double check and solidify my scores. But just off first impressions, I have 2 clear favorites. Now, picking between the 2 of them, that's going to be the tough part.
Tricky part with Kings County, you got to wait for the finish to finish before you try the next one. I'm going to
that's the thing. That's the thing.
That's where like, trying to taste through these like fairly quickly. You don't want necessarily the one to influence the other as much as you don't want it to, but
we could talk about scores later, but I think A and D clearly have the best noses out of the 4. I think B has a little bit of that earthy, farmy type of grain note to it. C, I think it kind of loses. It's not as it's not as earthy forward as B is. However, C isn't as powerful or as enticing as A and D. That's all I'll say.
To that point, would the earthier, like more kind of bold profile like that be more something somebody would be wanting, like with this versus something more traditional, you think?
No, like I always say no to earthy is not good. like to me.
Oh, you're right. All right. So,
Earthy's not a good name.
oh, okay.
Earthy is like Jep the Creed vibes. Like I do not want that on my life. Yeah.
Have you tried their weeder, by the way?
Jep the Creed? No, I stay as far away from that place as I can.
I did too. You should give him another chance with a 6-year-old weeder. It's pretty good.
6-year-old weeder? Okay.
Yeah.
Is there any Bloody Butcher in that? Not that I don't like Bloody Butcher, but the way they do Bloody Butcher is awful.
Right.
It tastes and smells like my grandmother's basement.
I'm assuming it's a bad thing. Yeah, I don't have to.
That's not good. It's yeah. You don't want your whiskey to smell and taste like mothballs and dirt.
Ruthless.
I think I have my bottom two as well, actually.
Yeah, and the tough part about Jep the Creed is like they're such a great family, and they're doing the right things, but that Bloody Butcher, I tried actually a new bottle not that long ago just to see if it's gotten better, and it tastes the same if not worse.
Try the weeder, I'm telling you.
What's that?
I think it's new. The weeded bourbon that I'm talking
Weeder,
about.
yeah, I did see the Weeder came out. Maybe I'll give that one a go. And you're scaring me, dude, but I'll try it.
I think I can only eliminate one so far.
Yeah, it's not even close for me. There's definitely top two.
Well, we can do things differently. We can just go around the horn and just name our top two if you guys want to do it that way. Cut to the chase.
Well, I mean, don't you usually want to eliminate one first?
Sure. Either way.
Let's eliminate before we select.
Yeah,
that's fine.
That's a little easier.
All right. So for me, I guess in terms of elimination, I'd get rid of C first, in my opinion.
I'm with you. C is one of my least favorites.
C feels just flat amongst the others.
Yeah, it was lighter too.
Are we all in agreement on this, or?
It's in my discard pile.
That's not my first choice, but it's one of my choices. So I'll agree with you on C.
Okay,
All right.
C's out. All right.
Oh,
What's everybody's second choice?
this is tough right now, honestly.
My first choice is getting rid of B.
You don't like B?
B smells like a farm, and it finishes with that bitter, nasty funk that I cannot stand.
I can see that. I was kind of thinking.
So I'm so sensitive to it. It's just the weirdest thing. And if I smell it or taste it, I can't. It's out.
Yeah, it is very earthy, and like when I was talking about earthy, there is a little bit of that kind of like barnyard or umami.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of
that's the perfect. It's barnyard on the nose, and that's gonna kill it. And I get it a little bit. I get a little bit on the back of the palate too.
Yeah.
To me, that's how heirloom whiskeys taste like, though, and some of them could be good.
No, they do not.
Heirloom, yeah.
There's heirloom. Like look at like New Riff. Like New Riff uses heirloom grains sometimes, and I know it's more of a Kentucky style, and I get that, but. I feel like there are certain distilleries that have done heirloom grains and they do not let it smell like that or taste like that. But that's the crazy thing. Like I've had Kings County whiskeys before and they're freaking delicious. I don't think I've ever gotten this on a Kings County. Maybe that's just the essence of it being the single barrel. So
I'm in the opposite end. I don't think it's terrible, but I'm respectful. If you don't like it, you don't like it. That's fine. I just don't think it's that terrible. Guys?
To me, it was like the spiciest of the bunch, a lot of cinnamon, and definitely the longest finish. Yeah, sorry, go ahead, Tim.
Yeah, no, my first thing on the nose was pretty much just ethanol and cinnamon, the spiciness. And then, it does have a little bit of that herbalness that I threw it in the discard pile because while I enjoy, doing things that are off profile, I know that I'm weird and that it's not mainstream.
But I mean, we have a democracy here. So 3 guys don't like B, so you guys outnumber us. So that's pretty much that's all she wrote for that. Okay.
Yeah, I had on B like this slight like eucalyptus note. It was weird. It was something I don't normally pick up, but it was something that was jumping out at me. It was very, very different. So
okay.
Man.
All right, so that leaves us with A, D, and E, correct?
Yeah, correct.
I didn't pour mine as deep as Scott. I'm gonna have to add off a little extra.
Mm-hmm.
Colin, have you tasted those? I'm sure you have.
I have been tasting them with you guys,
Oh, okay.
and I am listening to the commentary. I don't. I don't know if earthy is there's an earthiness that comes from the grain, and then there's an earthiness that comes from stuff that's just sits around for a long time.
So
There's a sort of like a dunnage characteristic to,
yeah, that's right. Question for Scott and Jason: have you guys tried Frey Ranch single barrels?
Yep.
Yeah,
What do you think of those?
Yeah, they were definitely grain forward.
Yeah, that's what I'm asking.
A few of them, but they didn't have that musty like note to it that I'm getting in B.
Yeah,
got it. Okay,
I think because I love Scotch too. Scott doesn't really drink Scotch.
No,
I love
as
Scotch.
do I.
Yeah, I love Scotch. So I could respect and I could get like a dunnage type of aspect to some of those whiskeys, which I really do enjoy. I don't mind a little bit of that funk, but I don't know. There's like a certain, I don't know how I guess musty is the note that I pick up on some of these whiskeys sometimes. I actually get it from New Riff single barrels a lot too. So it's a weird thing. I think it's just something I'm sensitive to.
Got it.
Like it's like those ever like meet those guys that are like they drink rye whiskey, they love rye, but if you give them a rye with like dill in it, they completely run away.
Yeah.
Really sensitive to it. That's me with that musty note. It's just a thing. I don't know.
Okay. All right.
I want to thank you guys for the 5th sample because I only pulled out 4. I didn't see that there was an E hiding in my label box. So
right now
I just grabbed it and poured. I was like, oh shit, there's 5.
That's what you get for being late.
Yeah.
Hopefully he likes it better than the other 2.
We'll see.
Not to make this even more complicated, but there's a chance we can actually blend these blends together.
blend the blend. Oh boy, blend the blends. All right, I think I've got my 2.
Yeah, you can also pick 2 barrels and not blend. And just have 2 alts.
If they were 15-gallon barrels, no problem, Colin.
Yeah, for these, like for each one of them, roughly what are we looking at yield wise, like kind of typical for you guys? I think this will be a big hit with our group. I mean, A, you don't see a lot of the Kings County picks, and B, again, it falls in line with what we do. We do a huge variety of things, and that's kind of nice. So,
all right, I got my 2 as well.
So we have anywhere from 156 bottles to 192. So
that's not too terrible, even for a bike. Yeah,
sort of standard yield.
Right.
Usually we select a barrel that has like 52 bottles is what we end up with.
Right.
We've made a lot of people angry, that's for sure.
You can send them our way. We can.
Yeah. Man, I'm struggling with the final 3 right now.
Well, let's discuss each one, right? Let's go and discuss each one in a little bit more detail. Why those 3? Let's start with Jason, because like he's very adamant about what he likes and what he doesn't like, and I respect that. That's great. Jason, why don't you go through these 3 and tell us what you liked about each one and what might each one be lacking to your liking?
So I'll just go through each category score real quick. I love the noses on both A and D, I think are stellar. They're extremely dark. They're very sweet. I think it's an inviting way to get into the glass, to want to sip it. E, I think, while it has a very nice nose, I don't think it's as to the level of A and D. I think E is a little bit more of a chocolate forward whiskey to me, especially on the palate. chocolate and a little bit of like that maltiness, kind of like a Whopper type of aspect on the nose for me on E. Whereas A and D, you can say what you want. Maple syrup, almost like a rum characteristic in some aspect on A and D, which I freaking love. Palate wise, A and D are so close. I think A is, if I could give it one knock, it's slightly more drying on the palate. Whereas D, I think has a crazy good palate. It's thick, it's rich, and then the finish on D just goes for days. I love the finish on D, and I don't think as much as I do like E, I just don't think it's to the level of what D is. So that's kind of my. So if I had like a ranking here, D would be my pick, but I wouldn't mind A either. But I think E kind of falls off between A and D.
So D would be your number 1, A would be your number 2, E would be your number 3.
Correct. I mean, honestly, D and A are like 1A, 1B. They're both amazing whiskeys. So
Fair enough. Who's ready to go next? Who wants to go next?
For me, the one issue I have with D is I'm picking up still a little bit of what I got in B. There's a little bit of that aggressive note that I pick up in B, and E, when Jason described D, was more of like what I got on E. Like I felt E was more those kind of like richer, bold characteristic, still a good finish. And again, this might be a little bit of me being kind of like, down the middle a little bit with E. A, I thought had a lot of those kind of like sweet components. It felt a little bit more, I guess I'll say, I don't want to say like average, because that's not what I mean. I mean, it feels slightly less bold than D and E, but I love how A sips. Like I love how it noses. I love how it sips. I don't know. For some reason, I really like E. Like I like E.
This is after you just went on and on about A.
Yeah, like I like A. For me, there's that little bit of an off-putting note that's there, and maybe that's the barley that's coming through. That's changing it for me. So for me, like my 2 that I would keep would be E and A.
E
You mean
and A.
You mean E and D?
Yeah,
or
E and A. Yeah, so A and E as in Edward.
So which one would be your number 1?
I would probably lean a little bit more. My number 1 would be E, and my number 2 would be A.
What notes do you picking up on E and A? What's a predominant note?
I still get a little bit of those kind of like cherry fruit notes, a little bit of like leathers, tobaccos. There is a little bit of that kind of like earthy characteristic, but I'm looking at that as more of a rich like tobacco kind of note, that maybe a little slight hint of like some maple syrup that I'm getting on E.
Okay, fair enough.
Like E feels more to me like that like Elijah Craig barrel proof kind of note. You get a lot of those really just rich characteristics. And that's where the one thing with D is I'm getting a little bit of that like root beer. There's a little bit of that like root beer kind of root note that I'm getting in D. So for me,
okay,
it's a sweeter B, if that makes sense.
so E is your number 1, correct?
Yeah, E would be my number 1, and A would be my number 2.
So you and Jason are on opposite sides of that spectrum right now.
Yeah, I don't agree with Scott at all. I don't think D is anywhere close to B, but that's me.
All right, hang on. We'll get back to you guys.
right.
Danny, do you want to go in? Do you want to go next?
I'm newer to the whole tasting thing, so my notes aren't as
It's
complex.
okay, you like what you like. It doesn't matter.
But,
Yeah.
I found A to be my number 1 pick. Just found it to be a little smoother, more on the caramel side. I do like sweeter stuff. I did pick up leather in a lot of them. In terms of D, I almost found like a varnishy note. Like I did not like the nose on that. I actually ranked that the lowest. And then E I'd put in the middle. Again, a lot of leather, some cinnamon, cola notes. I mean, the palate on D was better. I didn't get that varnishy, whatever note it was on it. So if I had to rank the nose, A, E, D. If I had to rank the palates, A, D, E. And I like the finish. Okay, so I rank the finish A, D, E as well.
So in terms of overall scores, your number one is A, then E, then D, correct?
I mean, if we're going 2 out of 3, it was A, D, then E.
A, D, and E. Okay.
Yeah, there's just something about the nose on D that, similar to Scott, that just didn't sit as well.
So we got 3 people and we got 3 different number ones. Great. Tim, the good news is that there's no 4 sample, so there cannot be 4 number ones. So let's see what your number one is.
Yeah, so that one's tough. I did a Kings County pick with a different group a while back, and we got 2 barrels, and what was cool about it is they were so different, and that's where I'm at. A to me is kind of sweet, oaky with cinnamon, creamy, like, dare I say it, kind of traditional Kentucky, right? It's really good. But D is broody and dark and chocolate and has those, warmer, darker notes to me. I had be tough to pick between the 2 because they're so different. Now I'm gonna have to put them together and see what happens. But it's tough. I mean, it's A and D for sure, but I don't know that I could put them in that same order. I think A might edge it out just in like, it feels really weird to have a very traditional bourbon profile that says Kings County on it.
From Kings County, yeah, I know.
It's a little weird.
If I put a gun to your head and you had to pick one, which one would be number one?
And you know what? It's so moody. Let me see. Quick.
I'm actually doing that. I'm actually mixing A and D.
I might have to go A. But it would depend on my mood. I guess tonight it's an A, but tomorrow it could be D.
All right. Got it. So we got 2 A's, 1 E, and 1 D. My turn. I'll just go straight to number one. I thought D was the most interesting one to me. I kind of agree with both you and Jason about the profile. I think it's darker. I think it's more interesting than A. They're very close, A and D. You guys are right. Yeah. The varnishing note, like I said, the barrel suggestion is very real. And once you said it, I'm like, maybe there's a hint of that. But I've nosed more whiskeys with a lot more pronounced varnishy notes. This is not it. It's not. It doesn't really take away from the whiskey. On the palate, though, that's where it stands out for me. It's a bit more balanced, a bit more complex. I get more out of it. I get even like I get almost like a roasted marshmallow note on a D. I like a little bit of a smoke presence, not a lot, but just enough to make it stand out a bit better. You get figs on this. I get figs on this. I get those traditional brown sugar that Kings County is famous for. Yet it's very gentle. To my earlier point, it's not like it's bold enough, but it's not like in your face. But at the same time, I can see the Scott's point about E being close to ECBP, right? Elijah Craig barrel proof. Yes, because I get a bit of a more of a tannic note on that one, a bit more drier note on that one, a bit more spice. And that's not my personal palate, but I know plenty of people that kind of gravitate towards that. So it really becomes a personal choice. If I had to pick one, D is my clear winner. Like it's not even close to me. D, then I would go A and E. A and E being like 1A, 1B, so to speak, 2A, 2B, so to speak. So we got 2 Ds, we got 2 A's, and 1 E.
I mean, Michael, to your point, if we're picking the most interesting barrel, I'd probably switch it to D.
I think that's what we're here for, right? Like if you wanted to just be I don't want to call it an average barrel because all 3 of these are pretty good. And on its own, if you had to pick up a bottle, you would not be disappointed. But we do have a privilege of picking between the 3. And I do want to make a selection that is tasty and at the same time interesting enough for people to come back to it and make them think. And I think D is that barrel for me. But again,
and I'll 100% default to you guys on this because this is where my dislike of Scotch is playing a role. Like when I get these smoky notes and I start to pick up that is not my thing at all. It is the least favorite thing for me. And that's what I get off of D. Like when you mentioned
which makes sense why you like E, because I knew you were when I tasted it, dude, I knew you were gonna like E.
Yeah, I struggle with like that D profile is because that's not something for me. But again, you guys will know more of that. Like E and A feel more, I guess, as much as I can say mainstream as possible. But D, I get what you're saying. It has a lot of stuff going on. There's just that one when you get into those little slight heavier, like smoky notes. I get lost with that. That is not my thing.
It's very light. That smoky note, it's very light.
Not to me, it isn't. It was the one B and D. I could have eliminated immediately.
Maybe it's the art bag I did a review, but I don't get it smoky on that at all.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
we have very different definitions of smoky.
Well, prepare to have your minds blown. Why don't you actually mix A and D and see what you get?
A and D. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, let's see if I got equal-ish component. Kind of.
Yeah, it does bring some of the more darker notes over to the traditional side.
And the A has that sweetness going for it, and that brings that to the table. So it becomes a bit more sweeter, that blend.
Yeah, I actually really do like that blend.
Yeah, see?
Because it gives like the A sweetness way more of a finish.
That's right.
And it just rounds everything. It just kind of rounds everything out.
That's right.
Yeah.
Go back and taste it against D by itself and see what the difference is.
Yeah, see, I think adding a little bit of A and that kind of like that real rich, like kind of vanilla cream to like D has kind of offset a little bit of what I was getting that was slightly off-putting to me in D. Now this feels a little bit more kind of fruit, that kind of cherry or like a light kind of cherry tobacco note.
You get more cherries when you when they combine the two. I agree. And it becomes a bit more mainstream, to your point. It becomes more, I guess, approachable for most people. Like D, I can see, to your point, I can see people either loving it or be like, it's a little off-putting for me. I love it, but I'd be happy with D by itself or A and D as a mix, to be honest.
Like I feel like A and D, like combined, like just about anybody who likes nice kind of rich, bold, like whiskey would enjoy that. Like that's easy to enjoy, you know?
Okay.
It's got the sweetness, that tobacco, a little bit of chocolate, nice fruit notes.
That's good. I mean, I kind of love it that we all have different palates. It would be kind of boring if we all had the same palate.
I'll play the devil's advocate here. I think the blend between A and D is really nice, but I love D for what it is because it's different.
Yeah.
I think we're blending D and A to get something more like a barrel proof bourbon from Kentucky, and I don't want that in Kings County. I want true what Kings County is.
I was going to say, I think it loses something. Like I like A.
I think it does too. It loses that. I don't know, whatever the hell D has, that the rich, bold, in your face, brown sugar bomb.
Yeah.
It's light dark fruit character, cinnamon, the vanilla cream. I still do get a lot of sweetness in D. I do think the A, when you blend it, adds a component to Scott's point of like a richer fruit character for sure. But I don't know. I just love D on its own. The finish of it, everything that it's got.
I'm happy with either or. For me, definitely D. If we're just picking amongst the blends by themselves, D is my clear number one. I could live with D or D and A as a blend. Jason has a strong preference to D by itself. That's fine. I can live with that. So that's 2. I know where Scott is, so he's probably on the opposite spectrum of that.
Yeah, I'm trying to get a little bit more away from D. Like I'm trying to get a little bit more away from D. But
do me solid. Why don't you add a little bit of water to it and see how you like it now? Maybe that opens up something for you.
I don't know. I mean, I again, like D and A feels a little bit more like it's like E kind of a little bit for me. So I'm just
Okay.
gonna, for you guys, I'm gonna default because you guys are clearly liking something more than what I like, and
Okay.
that's where I'm struggling with this one a little bit.
I mean, Mike, to me, D is the more interesting whiskey. If I'm going for interesting, I can we phone a friend, Colin? What are these? Are your babies we're talking about here?
Can we bonus? Can
Oh,
we
yeah.
friend?
Oh yeah.
What are your thoughts on the two?
I personally well, I love them all.
Of course he does.
I'll say I gravitated to D in my initial taste through. I think E is, I don't know, E and A again, I think are on a sort of similar wavelength. E is a little bit more cherry cola. A is a little bit more cream soda.
Correct.
A is a pretty classic flavor profile. Put that up against a lot. But D, I think, is a little bit more on the edge and on the fringe, and it's really just got a heft that is a little rugged, a little bit more like you have it with barbecue, you have it with something really rich, full flavored, and it, for me, I think it would, if I were picking one, I'd probably go D. That's my palate, my taste, I think if I were bringing a bottle to Kentucky, I'd bring A. And it depends on what kind of party. If it's indoors, I'll bring an E.
Yeah.
If it's outside, I'll bring an A. I don't know.
I'll say this, right? There's, and I'm sure Mash and Drum guys will agree with this. You guys have done a bunch of picks. Obviously, you said 120 or so, and we're nearing our 100th pick as well. There's plenty of Kentucky single barrels out there with pretty similar profiles. Like you picked Kings County for its different, like it's for being different, right?
Fair enough, yeah.
And so if you're picking it for being different, people that are interested in buying a bottle, they kind of understand what they're signing up for. My biggest concern would be folks that have tried 15-year-old barrels, trying this one and seeing how, expecting the same thing. While it's reminiscent of that, it's a little different from a 15-year-old barrel profile. Both great.
You're saying 15 gallon.
Sorry, I'm sorry. Yes,
15 gallon, yeah.
Not a 15-year, yeah, 15 gallon, yes. But anyway, if you're going for a different profile, if you're going for something, Kings County based, I think D would be best representative of that.
You convinced me. I switched my vote. D it is.
Right.
No, I if I'm really honest, if I'm looking, because I have a shelf that's Kings County single barrels.
Yes, you do.
Yeah, and a barrel sitting at Kings
Nice.
County that just got filled this past year, right?
Right.
I'm gonna reach for D. I have some friends that I know will reach for A, but me personally,
Right.
D is that.
Let me say in defense of D, because there were a lot of notes that were thrown around that I feel like were maybe not super favorable, but yet it has. For me, the overwhelming thing was like toffee.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of black pepper even that maybe that's the note that I would describe maybe what people are talking about.
The toffee, I completely agree with, and that's what got me. I'm like, wow, I don't think I've ever gotten this.
It's got like a kettle corn, caramel corn.
Yes.
But
Like
it's not a cloying sweetness. It's not like a superficial flavor. It's just got, I think, those those flavors that give it complexity, creating a little bit. It's like a comparison to like music. It gives it a little distortion, a little edgy sort of gnarliness, but in a fun way.
And what I will add to that is it has enough spice without being over oaked. It coats front of your palate, it coats side of your palate, the side of your tongue, long ass finish without being that over oaky. Like it's pleasant, long finish.
Yep.
And it has though, like it balances the sweet and the spice in a very nice way. Like that's the best way to describe it for me. So we have 3 Ds. Scott is abstaining, I think.
I'll switch to B.
And you're, can you live with D, I guess, Danny, is what I'm asking. Yes, okay. So D it is. D takes it. What are we feeling? Jason, feel good about it?
Yeah, it's my number one pick. I'm in, baby.
All right. All right. All right now. Okay.
I think judged on what our group likes, they'll love this pick once they.
And same here. And same here. Like
it's big, it's bold, it's dark, it's sweet. It's it's got, and I think it's not too, even though it's a more of a Kentucky, I guess, type of blend, I still think it's got the DNA through and through of being a Kings County, which is what we want.
Colin, how many private blends have you actually done to date? I know at least of one.
This might be like the fourth
Okay.
that we've
So there's
that
not a
we've
lot
done.
of them.
Yeah. You know, I think it's a way for us. I mean, we just don't make that much. So,
Yeah. Okay.
you know, single barrels made sense when we had 15-gallon barrels, and you know, you were buying, you know, 50, 60 bottles per barrel. But this is a way, and also this just reflects the maturing of the distillery, you know. It's so I mean, I don't know if you guys are ready for the big reveal.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask. Yeah. Tell us.
So the samples range in age from 4-year minimum age statement, although everything has, and they go up to 7-year age statement. So it may surprise everyone to know that C is the oldest age stated sample, which was, I think, the first to be rejected. That is all 7-year.
Oh shit! Wow. Okay.
Hey, which one was that one?
C.
C.
C was all 7-year. Okay.
That was a unanimous no, basically. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
That wasn't my first, so that was my second no, but everyone else didn't like that one.
B was also rejected pretty quickly. That was a 4-year age stated, but it contains 5 and 6 year 15 a little bit of 15-gallon barrel in there.
Mhm.
So A and E are actually both 6-year. A has a 7-year top up, and E is a 6-year with a 6-year top up of both 15-gallon barrels. And then D is a 5-year, but it has 6 and 7-year in the top up. So you kind of get maybe the broadest range of age, not the broadest range of every sample, but of the 3 that we were sort of considering, you had a couple that were in the same range. You know, they're all probably the same average age, but you have one sample that's all 6, one that's a 6 and 7, and then one that's 5, 6, and 7. So.
Okay. Beautiful. From the logistics standpoint, this is a pretty much done blend, right? You guys can bottle it pretty much immediately.
Yeah, no,
right?
I mean, it is a single barrel in the sense that it's sitting in a barrel somewhere.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
It's blended in the barrel.
Yeah.
So what we do is we take the low fill 53s and then we top up with the small format. So it's,
okay.
you know, you're getting sort of 2 barrels in one with each one. And that was just because the 53s on their own you wouldn't get that excited about them. And then the small format on their own is not enough to qualify as a single barrel. They're usually low fill 6 and 7-year small format barrels. So you're looking at like a case. So instead of selling you a case as a single barrel, we'll blend it into a 53 and get a little bit more character and heft out of the 53, stretch the 53, and just get a rounder profile out of it.
Yeah, I think this selection is gonna make even more fans of the distillery. I think it just brings something to the table that prior smaller barrels didn't have. Again, in a good way.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, I think people wanted to hate on small barrels, and I think
I never hated on them. I love them.
I know. Well, that was the thing.
I was trying to figure out how to buy a case, right?
Then they sort of then people sort of really loved them. but they're really impractical. You know,
Right.
they were a great size when we were
Yeah,
you know,
right.
we're always sort of ahead of where our inventory is. So, or vice versa, the inventory is ahead of where we are.
I want to thank both Abby and Colin for entertaining this idea, because I know this has been a lot that went into it behind the scenes. Thank you for that. I think as you guys were talking, I was sipping on D. This is a fantastic whiskey. I think a lot of people will be really, really happy with it. To you guys' point, private blends are few and far between from Kings County. Truthfully, single barrels from Kings County are few and far between.
Right.
So,
Yes.
so this is going to be a fantastic project. I think both
But
clubs are lucky to have them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I just want to say one thing to that, which is just that, you know, we when you pick some distillers single barrels, they're just like, here's the serial numbers. Which
Yeah.
one do you want?
Right.
When you pick a Kings County single barrel, it has been vetted, you know, it has been reviewed by the blending team to ensure that it is singular and stands apart from everything else. So
That's
if
right.
we don't have single barrels, it's because we're not going to sell you something that we don't believe in, or we don't want on the shelf in a position of prominence. Every single barrel that comes from Kings County is going to be unique but special within the category of single barrels relative to, you know, some of the regular stuff that we put out. So, but not every brand does that. Some brands are just like, okay, here's the warehouse, here's serial numbers K through G, you know, have at it. And so I think it's, you know,
Well,
anyway,
listen. I
it's a point of
respect that.
pride.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I respect, even though sometimes Gabby and I butt heads about, hey, how come you don't have a barrel for me? And she's like, well, fuck, we don't have enough inventory. We got to blend our own shit.
Right.
I respect that. I think the quality is the most important thing to both you and us and Jason's club, I'm sure. So again, thank you guys a lot. It's been very fun to kind of see your growth, us being neighbors, and I'm sure this is not the last project we work on together. So any parting words, guys?
No, just,
Yeah, I mean, I would say from our standpoint, you know, thank you for the opportunity. I mean, it's something, again, we have a lot of people who have a lot of interest in a lot of different things, and this falls right into that category of people that are gonna appreciate, again, something that's different and unique. So, you know, thank you for the opportunity.